Hi everybody, this video is sponsored by a contribution from Anonymous, and here's what she wants you to know. Hi Ollie, would you please offer me your opinion regarding a dilemma I have found myself in and just can't see the way out of? I have made a small PayPal donation hoping it will contribute towards continuing success of your channel. This year I've been able to put a label of NPD on my mother, having been no contact for a year already. The new information I now had access to has reinforced my decision and made me add all my siblings and their families to the no contact category, having met my criteria of, do they abuse me? All of my more distant family have already turned against me anyway due to relentless manipulation by my mother and siblings. Therefore, I am totally severed from the entire family. Now I've gone and complicated things. I got to thinking more and more about one of my nieces who was clearly scapegoated by my brother and his new wife 20 years ago. I remember it happening and have felt dreadful shame for being complicit in it at the time. They actually threw her out on the street at the age of about 15, and after being discarded by my mother and taken on by my sister just for manipulation purposes and thrown out again, she ended up in a relationship with the son of a notoriously violent and criminal family in my own hometown. I was in my early 20s at the time. My elder half-siblings are 20 years older than me, and I'm closer in age to my niece. I remember my brother and his wife telling me how crazy and violent and abusive she was. I remember listening and them trying to incite me to back them up, though it was obvious from what I already witnessed with my own treatment that I was getting one side of the story. And that's all you ever get from narcs and enablers is one side of the story. I did agree with them that it was terrible if she had done this or that thing, but I never actually brought it wholesale. Right. And there, I think you might be feeling guilt because there was your opportunity to help her and help yourself because you had firsthand knowledge of the abuse that they were capable of doling out. So you understand it more now, what was going on, but you didn't have the tools then to address it, the confidence to address it, or know how to put your finger on it, or to verbalize it properly to defend it. So you ended up kind of giving vague acknowledgments, and you're feeling guilt about that now. Up until then, what I had known firsthand about my niece was that she was a sweet, loving little girl. I always felt an affinity for her, as I remember her being the center of attention when she was a baby, and I remember when her younger sister was born. She really was the cutest baby I'd ever seen, and I remember all the adults switching over to praising her sister all the time by the virtue of her being cute and pretty. I remember the shock of realizing that the adults tell you that you should be a good girl, but what they actually want you to be is cute. Her younger sister continued to be cutest, and she never really seemed to be praised for anything again, though I didn't have all that much contact with my brother's family. In short, when I was a child, I thought she was treated unfairly by everyone. Anyway, with my new knowledge about narcissistic families, I decided to find her and reach out to her. She seemed ecstatic I got in touch. When I first spoke to her, my heart went out to her in so many ways. She hadn't spoken to her dad in 15 years. I hadn't spoken to her dad in 20 years. She talks in a rough, brash way, which is unrecognizable from the well-spoken 15-year-old she was. She told me how she had to deliver a stillborn fetus completely on her own at the age of 19. She told me that her brother's new wife had shouted for my brother to hold her still while she hit her while she still lived at home. She just had started a new job when I got in touch. I saw alarm bells because I saw it as an indicator that she was not holding down jobs, but it turns out that it's her first proper job. She's 35. She is terribly embittered by her dad and stepmother. She says that she's seen all the paperwork that went with the court case that had her removed from her natural mother's care, and that her stepmother was friends with all the social workers associated with the case. Again, another reason why you can't trust child services, CPS, whatever it's called, okay? Because they take on personal relationships, they choose sides, and when they say they're doing what's best for the child, that's bullshit. I know that to be true as I remember her having them around for informal drinks, and I remember her wining and dining anyone she blatantly wanted to get favorable terms with, builders when they needed building work, etc. My niece has also concluded from the paperwork that the main motivation to get custody of her and her sister was financial, as it meant no child support payments to their mother. I believe her. I'm sure that's absolutely true. In subsequent phone calls, she has revealed that she has been in a couple of serious fights in which police were involved and one in which she was arrested. She is living with a man 10 years younger than herself, who she has 2 children with. She also has a 13-year-old from her previous self-proclaimed abusive relationship, presumably the notorious family. The main issue I have with the calls is that I find we've been going over things from the past, and she has been so focused on what I could tell her about her dad has said to her. I understand it, but I told her what little I know, which is not much, but she keeps coming back to it as if she doesn't believe me. I also feel like she can't begin to see the bigger picture. It's weird. I feel like she has part of her brain missing for processing what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be derogatory. It feels like that. I feel like it's impossible that she's going to get, I feel like it's impossible. I feel like it's possible that she's going to get what she can out of me and use it to attack her dad and his wife in the future. Yeah, probably. I also feel bad for not trusting her, as I could see how she got where she is. I've also seen so many stories on YouTube of people in her kind of position, and I don't want to betray or abandon her. And really what she's going through here is, look, you've been removed for 20 years. She's been removed for 15 years. She knows nothing. You probably have more knowledge than she does because she was raised by that narc. So she's getting the brunt end of it. She was the black sheep. So she doesn't know what the hell happened. She probably has no concept of what narcissism is, its terms, how it works. She doesn't, and the reason she's leaning on you is because you haven't spoken to them in 20 years. You're basically going no contact with the rest of the family. And she feels like, look, she may not realize the level of your abuse or what's going on. She probably knows something is there with you, which is why she's saying, you know, she thinks you know more, but you're not telling her. You need to be completely honest with her, because at this point, she's asking these questions. She's asking these questions to find out, you know, what the hell happened. And unless you're completely honest with her, you know, how is she supposed to get to the point where you're at unless there's somebody there who understands the situation she's in and can actually share in her actual family stories with her? You know, you're kind of asking her to find her way out of a dense forest without a map, and you have the map. You got to talk to her. And if she wants to go ahead and confront her dad, we all know we have this need to see the narcissist pay. And that's where it's coming from. And she probably would like to confront her father. Now, is that the best thing? I don't know. It depends on situation to situation, because it typically gets you nowhere. And with a family dynamic of, like you have, where you have an entire family of enablers and narcissists that have been carrying this on for generations, okay, they're not just going to have their come to Jesus moment and admit to this. So, you know, she's immersed in confusion and anger, and her anger is righteous as yours is, because as you said, you saw her getting abused right from the get when that second daughter was born, and all the attention shifted to her. The same blaming, the same, this is a bad kid. When your parents tell you you're bad and tell other people what a piece of shit you are, that is devastating to you. that is devastating to you. I would suggest you need to be open with her about narcissism and about your experiences and share it and talk to her about, her anger being righteous, but where her anger is ultimately going to lead her to, because these people are never going to acknowledge what they did. Now, in a situation like hers, where it's been 15 years apart, 20 years, the best thing to do, if I was her, the best suggestion I would give to her if she wanted to make any contact with them at all is, once you explain all these dynamics to her and you get her to see the light and get her to understand, then she could write an email or a letter to her father, just telling them, I want nothing to do with you. I'm not writing to reconcile with you. I just want you to know I understand what you are, you fucking animal. And you don't fool me anymore. And you're not going to ruin my life. That will drive them fucking batshit. And then at that point, she should never acknowledge them again if they try to re-engage. Like, nope, I know what you are. I'm fine on my own. I've made it 35 years. Fuck off. I found if I tell her something with a couple of layers of complexity that really fits into a bigger picture, she seems to snatch out a simplistic take-home message. For example, if I said Grandma had done spiteful things in context of her gaining in a particular way or causing a kind of damage that might have impacted her dad's behavior, she says something that reflects the take-home message, Grandma was a nasty woman, which misses the point. The point being that was why her dad was affected. She is not at the point where, look, you can get to that of why the father did what he did, but you have to be able to acknowledge her abuse from the father first. Okay? You can't skip steps in narcissistic abuse recovery. Okay? Because if you're already trying to, here's the problem. If you're already trying to explain why the father did what he did until you get to what he actually did, it actually seems like you're minimizing his behavior and pushing it off. And she's angry and looking for somebody because she doesn't know, still doesn't understand what the hell happened. Now, Grandma probably is a nasty woman. And I don't think that and it does miss the point of what you're talking about in right now, but it doesn't miss the point of the overall picture, okay? But you are putting the cart before the horse when you're going after the why her father acted like that, until you've acknowledged and gone through as much as she can remember and you can remember of the father's specific abuse. Is a specific abuse towards her and what her father had done to you. That's where you start your basis of narcissistic recovery, is acknowledging each other's abuse from that abuser. Once that's out in the light and that ball is rolling, then you could get into because once you're going to get that relief of, oh my God, somebody acknowledges it and realizes it, and you'll get that relief, and that relief will last a little while. But then she's going to do what we all do. Okay, why? But why did this happen? Why me? Why did I have this fucked up family? Why this? Why that? How? How did this happen? And then that's when you get into the grandmother's abuse and how her father got set on that pattern of abuse. And this is just a pattern of abuse, of evil in this family that has been going on for generations. And you need to make it clear to her, okay, at this point, at 35 years old, being completely separated from this narcissistic abusive family, that, yeah, it was hard, and yeah, it put you behind the 8 ball in a lot of ways. But at this point, they did you a favor. They did you a favor because she's already no contact. So she doesn't have to worry about the breakaway. The fact that they kicked her out instead of her being able to leave on her terms is why she's so twisted right now. She also said a hurtful thing to me, which I consider a small-minded view, that I wouldn't be able to understand how she'd never let her kids suffer what she did because I didn't have kids. This is what she'd already asked me, whether the reason I didn't have kids was because of the family, I told her it was likely a big part of it. I told her if I were to have children, that I didn't know how well equipped I would have been had I had them, especially when I was younger. I told her I saw it as more complex, and that if my main aim was to simply not to throw them out, for instance, that other subtle aspects of having children, like listening to them, could be overlooked. Now I'm wondering whether I hit a nerve. I didn't mean to be judgmental, but now I think I am. I honestly struggle to see how a mother I honestly struggle to see how a mother being arrested for violence can be given good care. Am I judging her unfairly? Look, she's got anger issues, and you should understand better than anybody where her anger issues are stemming from. You know, she seems like she probably does love her children, and you know, when you have children and you're put in that situation, and then somebody who doesn't have children, because when you have children and you don't have children, it does change it a lot. And look, let me give you some advice here. She's too soon to be looking at bigger picture and small-minded view. Okay, she needs to deal with the what happened to her now. Okay, and when you're jumping to bigger view and small-minded view things, she's going to shut down and she is going to lash out. I don't necessarily even think her saying that because you didn't have kids that was necessarily a lash out. I think that might be how she legitimately felt, and you might be a little bit more sensitive because you didn't have kids, because now you're probably wondering, well, maybe I could have been a mom, maybe I could, maybe. And I mean, that might be a little bit more to do with you than her, but I mean, that's not necessarily a negative on you based on what you went through yourself. You know, you're still dealing with your issues as well, and you're also trying to help her as well. Whereas you're trying to help her where you two should be helping each other, because I'm sure she has information that can help you, and you have a ton of information that can help her. You need to talk like peers, trying to figure out, hey, how did you see this in the family? What's your take on this? What's your take on that? This is how I saw it. This is how I saw it. Really, and you're going to see a coming together of you two as you talk like that. I'd like to add that her stand of "I never let my kids suffer like I did" was the kind of thing my mother used to regularly grandstand about, and I won't even begin to tell you what she was like as a mother. Oh, I can imagine. You already know, because you already made hundreds of videos about my mom. She has many years and is from many places and hurt many more people. Well, I mean, look at who raised your niece. So they abused her for 15 years and then threw her out in the wilderness and abandoned her. So any type of lessons of being a mother she got from her mother who was abusing her. So when you hear things come out of her mouth that are said by the narcissist, it shouldn't surprise you, because she wasn't exposed to anything else. She wasn't. And she has to understand, and that doesn't necessarily mean she is a narcissist herself. That means because she was abused by them, she is prone to narcissistic tendencies. My niece told me that if her dad died and she knew about it and would go to the funeral, that she'd knock out his wife if she said anything to her. Sounds aggressive and very angry, at the same time as telling me that she's sorted out now, and that people can't hurt her anymore. No, that is a natural mixed feeling. Like, I sorted it out and they can't hurt me anymore. But I know if my father was standing in front of me, or Precious was standing in front of me, I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I would do. I don't know if that switch would be hit or not. Seriously, and that you can't help that because you still have so much pent up anger and rage over the abuse that had happened and continues to happen. So that's a natural anger and a natural reaction for her. That all goes again to the righteous anger. Her anger is righteous. What you say to her is like, well, what would any of that accomplish? After 15, 20 years, why would you even want to go to the funeral? Why? To get closure, to see them, let them know they didn't kill. At the end there, you're not going to gain anything there. I asked her to think about how we could meet up and for next time we talk. I kind of want to walk away, but I'm the one who made contact. I was thinking of going to see her and meeting the children. Despite my reservations, she could be a great mom who's got some understandable problems. For the last 20 years, I'd have given anything if just one person who knew me and my mom had approached me and let me know that they knew I was a decent person and that they knew that everything my mom had said about me was lies. I know that was a big part of my motivation to be that person for my niece. I'm so confused. Anonymous. Okay. Here's the thing here. Okay. I'm not sure you're ready to take on your niece. And I'm not exactly sure that if you reaching out for your niece is as much for you as it is for her, which is fine. Which is fine. You need to approach your niece, okay, as somebody who's looking to help, but you need some answers on your own. You need to understand, because you're seeing another dynamic here with your niece of the result of the abuse result from your narcissistic family. There's a lot to be learned here. Now, is it at all possible that your niece is too far gone and beyond help? Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. Some people get pushed so far, they cross the narcissistic abuse borderline, and there's no going back. You know, I've never talked to her. I don't know her, so I don't know. It sounds like, though, from what you're telling me here, that your niece is still looking for answers. And I think that's where her frustration is. And her need is to lash back at them and get revenge on them is what's driving her. So she's yet to understand, and I don't know if you've explained this, so now you're telling her you kind of knew what was going on, or you did know what was going on. So she's in her mind probably thinking, well, where the hell were you? Why did it take you so long to say something? And that's what you really need to get into if you guys are going to talk about this and you're going to try to help her. She needs to understand how destructive the abuse is, how it burns, it gets ingrained in your head at such an early age that to this day in your 30s and 40s that you two are, you are still trying to make sense of what happened. That she has to know that she has to understand that you are both relearning everything you knew. Because you were raised by lying narcissistic abusers, you could take their word on nothing. Things you thought was settled things you would never have given a second thought about. When you go back and rehash it and think about it now with the knowledge of how narcissism and these personality abuse works, you then go back and you see it for what it is. And you are so mind blown that, why didn't I see this before? Well, you couldn't see it because you were still immersed in the abuse. And even though your niece hasn't seen them for 15 years, I wouldn't specifically call her no contact because it wasn't her decision to separate. It was theirs, and it was done as a punishment and to abuse her and probably to get her to come crawling back. And I don't know what the specific in and outs were of that. Okay? They cut it with her. She didn't cut it with them. So if she were to write a letter to them, it would be like, just so you know, I'm cutting it with you at this point. I know what you are. I know you're straight evil. And that would be the only contact for her. I would suggest you tell her. I understand you're frustrated here because you're not. She might not be responding the way you'd like her to, and it might be causing some triggering with, and I hate that word triggering, but it might be causing some triggering for your own, with your own past. Okay. The best thing I think you can do for her is to really continue to work on yourself and talk with her about, like, when she tells you something that happened, I'm sure you can help her with something that happened with you similar, and then you guys can hash that out. Like, listen, and I would say, like, look, I'm still trying to figure this out too. You know, I'm a little further ahead than you because I started a while back, but I'm a little further ahead from you, but I'm still learning. We're all still learning. Everybody who does a channel like this talks about narcissism, you know, whether it be on here or on blogs or on radio shows now where you have psychologists taking this on. All of us are still learning because this narcissistic rabbit hole goes so deep. Whether or not she can be saved or not, I don't know. I'm giving you some ideas here of where you can go and why I think you might be getting a little frustrated with her. I mean, to be thrown out at 15 and have some fucking bitch stepmother demand you be held down, and he does it so she can beat on. She's entitled to her anger. I'm not saying you don't have understanding, but try to extend your understanding for her. And I understand there might be times where she's so intense that you might need a break, or she might start losing it. And again, she may have crossed the narcissistic border. I don't know. You would have to, you're going to have to make that decision at some point. I don't think it would be a bad idea meeting her and her children, so you can see with your own eyes and assess what's going on and see. And I think it's a lot easier to talk face to face than over a phone anyway. You know, because when you're over the phone, the one doesn't know when the other one is speaking. So one starts talking, the other one starts talking, and before you would cut her off, you should try to have some face-to-face sit-downs with her, see how that goes, spend some time together, spend some time bonding together, so you both can learn to trust each other. Because look, she came out of the narcissism, you came out of the narcissism, you're not sure which each one lies. It's just like, you know, two old, I'm not even going to say enemies, but for the sake of this video, two old enemies kind of trying to reconcile after years and years of estrangement of family members. Best example I could give, and I could tell by the way you write, this isn't from America. It's either, I'm imagining it's in the UK or UK, Australia, or Canadian. By the way, you spell mum, M-U-M. I would compare it to Jefferson Adams, how they were the best of friends when the Constitution was being written, and then after Adams was elected president, and then Jefferson, there was a whole fight, and it broke up those two. For years they didn't talk, and then they slowly started corresponding, regaining their trust, going back and forth like that. That's kind of where you're at here. You're at your Jefferson Adams moment of reconciliation. So take it slow, but do it face to face. You know, spend some time, assess it with your two eyes, because it's hard to get a real good assessment over the phone. You know, because she doesn't know when she's going to talk to you again, and you want to talk. You know, you want to get as much out. And it can be a lot of from her. It seems overwhelming, but you're way ahead of her in this race than she is. She's at the starting line and she's trying to go. So a little patience, I think the face-to-face meeting isn't the worst idea in the world, and you can make the assessment from there. Okay, but talk to her as a fellow victim, as someone who's not, because she's probably overly sensitive after being thrown out, that everybody talks down their nose at her, is always condescending to her. Come to her like, listen, I need your help as much as we need each other's help. And you might be able to bring down, you know, that wall she's putting up, and that need to lash out, and that intensity you feel that it's kind of giving you anxiety. So little minor tactics, they might go a long way. They might not work, she might be too far gone, but I think it's worth at least the meeting. You know, you've gone this far in your recovery. You did reach out to her. So you're looking for something as well as she is. So I think it might be a little too soon to throw that away. So thank you for your question and your contribution. I really appreciate it. Thank you everybody else for watching. And any advice you guys have, please leave them in the comments section below. And remember, if you want a video of your own made, you guys know what to do with the PayPal link in the description box. I'll get it right out to you. This is Ollie Matthews. Thanks for watching. See you all again soon. Bye.